Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Scott Luton and Kim Reuter with you here on live on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Hey, Kim, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, terrific. Hey, well, I couldn't miss it. You're a big get, and I tell you, yesterday you spent 12 hours out in the oyster farms in beautiful Virginia weather. Man, I can't see how we'd better that day yesterday, huh?
It was exhausting. It was a great day, but it was a 12-hour photo shoot. And it's probably the longest I've done. But it was great. We got a lot of great footage. Beautiful weather, could not have been easier.
Outstanding. Seafood supply chain, more to come. But folks,
Mhm.
today we continue a long running quarterly series, a popular informative series that we get a ton of feedback around. We're going to be sharing key insights from the latest quarterly edition of one of the leading transportation industry resources. It's the U.S. Bank Freight Payment Index, this time for Q3 2025. Now, as I shared in the pre-show, and Kim can attest for me, this is one of my favorite ongoing shows because it is incredible. It's incredibly informative, number one. It provides in the know market analysis that you can't find a lot of places. And not only do we share what's going on from a data standpoint, but we marry that with boots on the ground, in market executive practitioner perspective from Kim and our guest. Get ready, folks. And we're not only going to get a good sense of what transpired in the third quarter 2025, but we're going to be sharing a few nuggets that's going to help you prep for where we are now, where we're heading. And I tell you, Kim, as you know, a lot of business leaders and supply chain practitioners lean on resources like the Freight Payment Index to identify trends, plan, project, create productive conversations, and much, much more. Great show coming up. One last nugget. You want to know why it's such a great resource? Well, because U.S. Bank processed $43 billion worth of transactions in 2024 alone. And that's what provides the data which is central to today's show and the Freight Payment Index. And all those data-driven insights and exceptional commentary, well, that's what we're providing here today. Kim, lots of golden nuggets here today, huh?
Always a good one. This is one of my favorite shows. I've gotten the privilege to do it a few times before, and I love that it is so data driven. That's my, as you guys know, the queen of data. That's my favorite part about it is we get to actually look at some real data.
I'm with you. And folks, interesting to note, the U.S. Bank Freight Payment Index is released each quarter, and it's free to sign up. We're going to drop the link right there in the chat so you can sign up and get it delivered to your email inbox on time in full. All right, so Kim, I want to introduce our wonderful guest here today. I know you're ready because you're always ready, so I'm going to dive right in. Let's welcome in Bobby Holland, Director of Freight Business Analytics at U.S. Bank, and backed by popular demand, Heather Shilt, Director, Global Logistics with Fortive. Hey, Bobby, great to have you again. How are you doing?
Doing well. Great to be back.
And as always, you're bringing incredible business leaders and a repeat guest with you. Heather, welcome. I tell you, you hit it out of the park last time you were with us. It's so great to have you back on the show here today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so I want to do this. As Kim knows, we like starting with fun warm-up questions, and Bobby certainly knows by now. Heather, we'll start with you. You have had some incredible business travel this year. You've gone to at least France and Germany. I'm so jealous. Tell us, if you would, about one of your many highlights of those great trips.
Yes, so I had the opportunity to go to both countries. I also went to Sweden, which I forgot about, and Mexico.
Okay.
So, but all for work. And I always feel so blessed to be able to travel for our company. But the highlight really was first time to all of those locations, all of those sites, and was able to engage with our team there, build relationships, and we did logistics workshops in all of those locations to identify cost savings, opportunities, challenges, and walked away like re-energized with a plan and a path forward.
Oh, I love it. I can't wait to learn more. You and I are gonna have to grab a sandwich so I can dive into all of those conversations. Now, Kim, I don't know if you heard what I said in the pre-show, but Bobby just got back from Rome. Oh my gosh. Bobby, what was one of your many favorite memories from a great trip to Italy?
Probably going to Florence and having the world-renowned steak Florentine.
Really?
Bride. Yeah.
Okay, man. Was it better than what you thought it would be?
It was definitely better than what I thought it would be. I've been through Rome in the airports a few times, but I wasn't really that impressed. But we had family that just got back and had a blast, so we decided to make that our home base, and then we took a side trip to Florence and also to Bologna. So it was cool to get to see, 3 areas of Italy that I hadn't seen yet. Primarily, we usually go to Sicily and Tuscany when we go.
Hey, you see, Kim, we start asking Bobby more questions. We learn more about these incredible adventures he's been on. Man, I'm jealous. All right, so Kim, my question to you is a tough one. As we heard Heather and Bobby's world travels, which we learned so much from these wonderful world travels. So Italy, France, or Germany, if we offered you, Kim Reuter, a fully paid week-long trip leaving today, where are you going?
I'm going to go to Italy. I'm not going to lie about it. I love art. I've been to Italy before. It's a beautiful country. It has so much diversity. The food is amazing. The wine is amazing. It would be Italy, hands down.
Okay. Hey, I can't argue with that at all. And it sounds great. We're leaving at 4:05. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, great.
All right. We got a lot to get to here today, Heather, Bobby, and Kim, a lot to dive into. And I want to start with this, Bobby, truckload of insights and takeaways coming on time in full. But if you had that's right. I love my dad supply chain jokes. But if you had to pack it all into like a 1-sentence theme here today, what would it be, Bobby?
Well, basically, we see freight volumes are down, even though costs are rising. Basically, it looks like the transportation market continues to tighten in the third quarter.
Okay. All right. And we're going to dive a lot more beyond just a 1-sentence headline. So get ready. But that was a good theme for what we capture. And again, Amanda and Joshua behind the scenes, we're dropping a link. Hey, check it out. Download it. It's free and you can follow along. Okay. So let's do this. Before we get into 9, that's right, count them, 9 critical takeaways from the U.S. Bank Freight Payment Index for Q3 2025. I want to double down on some context. So Heather, as I mentioned, it is wonderful to have you back with us here today. But let's make sure folks know a little bit about you, our new audience members know about you and what the Fortive team does in a nutshell.
Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be back with the team here. So I'm Heather Shilt. I lead logistics globally for Fortive. I reflected, I am entering my 20th year in logistics, have the college reunion on deck this weekend, but 13 of those years have been with Fortive. And in addition to my day job with Fortive leading logistics, I also sit on a number of councils and advisory boards where I like connecting with other shippers and try to share on LinkedIn. And I see you have our slide, Fortive. So we were founded in 2016 off the heels and the legacy of Danaher. And we are all about, as you can see here, safety, technology. We like to say that we innovate essential technologies to keep our world safe and productive. We have intelligent operating solutions and advanced healthcare solutions where we want to make an impact on fields like workplace safety, environments, and healthcare.
Heather, that is outstanding. And I love the missional aspect of all that, the purposeful aspect of your mission, I should say. And we need more companies like Fortive and more incredible leaders like Heather. So thanks again for being here. Okay. So Kim, let's do this. We're about to dive in. Bobby's about to tell us for our new audience members how the U.S. Bank Freight Payment Index works and all. But let's get your perspective. How do industry leaders like yourself utilize resources like the Freight Payment Index? Tell us more, Kim.
So as I've said, this is one of my favorite calls because of all the data that's provided. As we know, the index isn't necessarily predictive, but it gives us really good quarterly data. I don't want to say near time, but pretty close to the end of quarter. So it's actionable, I think is what I'm getting at here, is that it's not stale data. It's not 6 months old. We're getting it on a regular basis. So I love the data, and how I use it, and I encourage my clients to use it, is use it for trending. What's going on? What may we expect in the next quarter? Do we have certain regions that may be struggling and perhaps we can take advantage of a softer market somewhere? That's how I use these tools.
I love it. And, we can learn some powerful lessons by better understanding the past, particularly in business and supply chain management. So good stuff there, Kim. Okay, Bobby, I'm gonna bring you back in here, and especially for our new audience members. We've been working together probably 5 or 6 years unpacking all of this supply chain goodness. But for our new audience members, would you share briefly what the U.S. Bank Freight Payment Index is, what it analyzes, and of course, how it works?
Okay. Yeah, the Freight Payment Index is U.S. Bank's view of the truck freight marketplace. As you pointed out earlier, $43 billion annually in payments transactions generates a lot of data. So it enables us to provide what we consider to be a different view of the marketplace.
Yep.
It's a chain-based quarterly measurement of changes in the market on both shipments and spend. It's another set of data points for the user community, the truck freight market, to use in making business decisions. And I appreciate the way that Kim put it when she mentioned the fact that we have the national overview, but we also have the regional perspective, because when we state what is happening nationally, those effects can trickle down and affect each region differently. So that's what we provide to the customers.
Outstanding. And of course, also in a new addition here in recent months, incredible freight rate data powered by our friends at DAT. It makes it even better. That is outstanding, Bobby. Okay, so now we are going to dive deeper into 9. Yes, count them, 9 key takeaways from the Q3 2025 U.S. Bank Freight Payment Index. And we're going to start nationally, right? We've got 4 key takeaways from the national market. And Bobby, tell us, give us those 4 key takeaways.
Okay, so nationally, the U.S. freight market declined, as we stated, largely due to tariffs and manufacturing contraction. And this is what led to the reduced volumes, as well as being affected by housing starts and consumer spending slowing. And this basically, like I said, resulted, from our viewpoint, in tightened capacity, which drove up shipping costs.
Yep.
The second one is that freight volumes and spending trends in Q3 reflected ongoing industry pressures and more recent policy changes. Again, tariffs are top of mind, a lot of other things that affect truckers, with national declines being offset by regional strength in the Northeast and the West regions. The third one is that shipments have declined more than 40% since 2020. Apart from a brief uptick in Q2 of this year, shipment volumes have dropped each quarter for the last 3 years. And then finally, the fourth one, as Scott showed, the DAT data showed that there was modest increases in spot and contract rates, as well as fuel costs in the third quarter. And these are also elements that contribute to higher costs that we saw in the third quarter.
Okay, outstanding. Folks, we are going to have a quiz at the end. But the great thing is, kidding aside, it's really, and I love Bobby's approach, him and the team. They give you the 9 key takeaways. If you forget everything else, you got to have that front and center on your radar. I want to add one more. This is not part of the 9, but this is certainly a big thing that was at play in third quarter and really for years. So check this out. This was reported by the World Economic Forum. The Global Economic Policy Uncertainty Index. Yes, there is one, as we try to quantify this historic record levels of uncertainty here in the U.S. and across the globe, not just in third quarter, but really for years now. And all of that, of course, was a major factor in the freight market and everything else. And look at that spike in August. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so let's do this. Heather, when you heard some of Bobby's key takeaways nationally speaking, and you think about what you're seeing as a global leader in supply chain logistics, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I try to look at it from a shipper's lens, because I'm in it every day. And I think it's an interesting contradiction when you see that freight volumes are down significantly, but then you have that clear signal of weaker demand, but our spending is up as shippers. So that tells me we're not really hauling less, but what we're hauling is actually costing more. And I think what Bobby touched on with, things that are going on in the market with capacity, driver, equipment availability, all the trade and tariff pressures, like this is something that I'm dealing with and other shippers are dealing with on a daily basis. And I was thinking, like, what could shippers do in a market like what we're seeing right now in Q3. And I kind of put together kind of a few things, but review carrier contracts, in that regional perspective, which we'll get into later, to understand how things may be shifting, making sure that you have a good carrier mix with depth. So you've got a mix of smaller carriers, alternate modes, intermodal, trucking, and just really understanding your cost per lane, and then continuing to monitor everything that's going on with trade and tariffs, those outside factors that are influencing what's taking place.
Heather, I love it. You come with solutions. I love it. Kim, she also touched on pressures. Bobby touched on pressures. Where is David Bowie and Freddie Mercury right now? Because they can sing the supply chain theme. What do you think? What are your observations nationally, Kim?
So what I see is a lot of confusion. And we kind of see a little bit in the data, right? Prices are going up, but actual loads are softening. So we see a lot of this sort of weird behavior. Though obviously Northeast and the West, those are shipping lanes. That's why they continue to stay strong. I'm very worried about the Southwest because that's a lot of construction and manufacturing. We're supposed to be able to make that better. Yep. So, that's what I'm seeing, or those are my concerns, I would say. As far as shippers and trucking companies, everybody's just trying to figure it out. It's a day-to-day basis right now.
Yep. We're all day to day, as I think ESPN and Sports Center said at some point in time. Not just athletes, supply chain pros are all day to day businesses.
Day to day.
Well, so Kim, you're perfect segue. You mentioned one of the regions, and this is really my favorite part of this quarterly discussion and the analysis you'll find in the U.S. Bank Freight Payment Index. We're going region by region, coast to coast, to identify some of those regional nuances and particulars impacting the freight market and the broader industry. And up first, we are going out to the West. So, Bobby, let's talk about your key takeaway or two from the West region.
Okay, so as we talked about before, the regional perspective helps to kind of put the national view in perspective. So when you look at the national, shipments were down 2.9% over the quarter, and spend was up 2% over that same period. But when we look at the West region, the numbers are both up. Shipments were up 4.4%, and spend was up 9% over the last quarter. And we see that the West region experienced significant growth in both shipments and spend during the third quarter. And this is generally driven by increased imports, strong housing starts, and then it's the largest gain. The largest sequential gain in 4 years.
Largest sequential gain in 4 years. And Bobby mentioned lots of things that played there in the West region. Heather, I am dying to get your take. What do you see out in the West?
And I think, the West is a key player, and Kim mentioned it too, just based on the location of the port and the importance of the port. I think, we're starting as the port volumes, and then also as shippers assess their inventory levels. We did a lot of stocking ahead, for tariffs, and then, where are we now with those with replenishment levels, and has that started to stabilize? I think that shippers using the West Coast gateways might find that capacity is improving, as we said, but just continue to watch for that volatility, if we see any shifts in imports there.
Yep. Heather, again, I love your approach. You're coming with observations and things that folks have to have on their radar. Kim, you always do the same. I think you and Heather might be second cousins. Who knows? What do you see out in the West?
Well, I don't know if we're our cousins. We're both from the East Coast, so it's possible. But we are definitely supply chain sisters.
That's right.
We can definitely say that. So, we talk about the West, and I think the thing that I heard in there was about housing starts. And that is definitely contributing, but we have to recognize that came out of some pretty bad stuff.
Yep.
The housing building going on the West Coast is a result of all the fires. And while it's driving the freight industry, it is sad on how it happened.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. So, and we all, of course, hope that continued recovery takes place for all the families out there, all the families in Jamaica, and all other points.
Yeah.
Man, it's been something weather-wise. Okay, so I want to touch on something. Manufacturing is at play across coast to coast and all the different regions as well. And I've got these great nuggets that I mined from the National Association for Manufacturers, National Association of Manufacturers. So they put out regular surveys, kind of pulse checks of manufacturing leaders. And check this out. For third quarter 2025, they pulsed a lot of manufacturing leaders here in the U.S. And let's see, hiring sluggish, orders are soft, production has seen some upticks, margins have been challenged, all that generally speaking. But look at this. The NAM had two key findings from their polling. Number one, the leaders' business outlook for the months ahead. Well, it rose from second quarter last year. I'll take any good news wherever I can find it. And it was a pretty significant jump there, almost 10 full points. And then the second thing that's probably not going to surprise anybody, the top business challenge in the manufacturing sector, which certainly we see play out in the domestic freight market, trade uncertainties. Raise your hand if you have trade uncertainties. There won't be any. Two hands. That's right. Folks, check out all the full report on the survey over at nam.org. Okay. We are going from the west to the southwest, right? The southwest region, which makes up 4 states. Really important. I think Kim's already mentioned the southwest. All right. So, Bobby, let's start with you, though. Key takeaway or two related to the southwest region.
So the Southwest region saw the sharpest regional drop in freight volumes. Yet shippers face increased costs due to tightened capacity driven by policy changes and economic weakness, which impacted trade, labor, and construction. We see this reflected in the numbers where shipments were down from the last quarter 15.7%, but spend was up a very modest 0.3%. So interesting numbers for that region.
Undoubtedly. All these numbers are always interesting, especially to process them and kind of marry them with boots on the ground leadership perspectives. And Heather, your thoughts on what you're seeing in the Southwest?
Yeah, so like Bobby said, with the Southwest being one of the softest regions with the volumes declining, I think about the trade lanes there with border trade. And if you're a shipper operating in that area, you'll want to keep an eye out for, different routing options and capacity availability. I think like why the regional view on something like this is important is because if you are operating in or sourcing from one of these weaker regions, then you may face like steeper risk or service issues.
Yep. We got to challenge all assumptions. This is one of the kind of main themes you're urging us here today. Carrier mix, lanes, you name it. All right, Kim, Southwest, what are you seeing?
I see a lot of softness, which is very concerning. I'm a little bit perplexed about what's causing it, to be honest with you. Manufacturing, a lot of that is happening in the Southwest. So that's what I'm thinking is causing the softness, but it's troubling for sure.
It is, Kim. It is. Well, I'm going to touch on one thing that certainly is always a factor, and that's construction activity, right? You're going to hear us reference housing starts quite regularly throughout the conversation. Always a factor in the domestic freight market. Well, think about it. New housing requires all sorts of materials that's got to be made and shipped to the site in high volumes, especially for those multifamily developments, right? Lumber, steel, cement, drywall, windows, HVAC systems, you name it. Well, check this out. According to the latest published U.S. Census Bureau information for August 2025, U.S. housing starts across the country were down in August from July activity month over month by about 8.5%. And they were down year over year from August 2024, about 6%. Now, if you look at further upstream, though, housing permits, right, which of course has to happen, so they tell me, before housing starts happen, permits were down 3.7% in July, and they were down 11% year over year in August 2025 from August 2024. So we'll probably see, based on that permit data, fourth quarter housing start numbers. It'll play in factor into that, and of course, freight activity. Now, one last note: a lot of this data is delayed because we got to get the government back up and running. Because if you go looking for data, we're still, those folks are out right now, which is it's painful all the way around.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's talk about the Midwest, right? The Midwest region, which is the heart of the country, I would reckon. Bobby, tell us what you saw, key takeaway wise, from the Midwest.
Well, because of reduced consumer demand, fewer Canadian border crossings, and again, the overall manufacturing weakness that we've discussed, we saw numbers in the Midwest. Shipments were down 2.2% over last quarter, and spend was down 1.4% over last quarter. So modest numbers, but still, not the direction that we'd like to see them go.
That's right. That is right. All right. So, Heather, when we think of the Midwest, beautiful places to visit up there, what are you seeing domestic freight market wise?
I think, as Bobby said, the Midwest remains under pressure. We've got that manufacturing softness. We've got muted freight demand that are keeping volumes down. But the upside for shippers is maybe the rates might become more favorable. But you've got to watch for service consistency, which could be a challenge if, say, carriers realize there's performance issues in this region, and then they choose to reposition their assets elsewhere. So
Yep.
that would just be a watch point there.
I'm up to about 12 watch points from you so far, Heather. Full truckload. Kim, when it comes to the Midwest, what are you seeing?
So the Canadian imports are probably one of the biggest impact that we have here, but we also have to remember we have a lot of manufacturing in the Midwest. All of our car manufacturers, we've seen a softening in that manufacturing because of the tariffs. I would say that the Midwest is probably getting hit the hardest with the tariffs.
Yep. All right. And one other thing that Bobby touched on, I think in each of these regions, consumer spending, which is something we always keep our finger on the pulse of. It's one of those watch points that Heather mentioned earlier. So get this, according to a third quarter 2025 survey of U.S. online adults by Forrester Research, it shows that 40% expect to spend less on large household appliances in the months ahead, and 39% are going to be spending less on furniture and home furnishings. So we'll see how those consumer trends will impact the freight market in the months ahead. Okay, so from the Midwest to the Northeast, a region that never sleeps, maybe. Bobby, your key takeaways from the Northeast.
Well, the Northeast, it saw increased freight shipments and spending in the third quarter, and this is largely driven by some manufacturing growth, but higher consumer spending. And so this was reflected in the numbers. We had a modest improvement in shipments of 0.6%, and spend was up 5%. So again, interesting numbers, but the Northeast is always an interesting one to watch because it's the smallest region, but because of the population density, it reads like a larger area of the country. So
yes, one little tick of that needle based on all that population can really be felt. Northeast, Heather, what are you seeing?
So with those shipments and spending both, holding up better than other regions, this tells me that maybe this part of the country, as Bobby said, is seeing stronger freight activity by those consumer demand increases, and also just with the ports being there. I think for shippers, this means that capacity could tighten there. So this is something we would want to watch for and really stay ahead on planning our loads and also making sure that we've got contracts in place with the carriers.
That's right. And we revisit those contracts and we lean into technology, some incredible things that technology is doing with load planning and overall transportation management. Kim, the Northeast, your thoughts?
First, I'm not sure if West Virginia is going to consider itself Northeast, but we can decide that, talk about that later. But I kind of echo what Heather said is that the ports are really kind of keeping the freight demand going on there, and high population, as Bobby has said. Nothing, this is pretty typical for the Northeast where they mimic what's going on in the West.
Yep, that is right. And you know what? Well, y'all weigh in. Is it West Virginia?
What, Bobby?
Bobby? We'll see. But while we take a little break here, folks, download the U.S. Bank Freight Payment Index for Q3 2025 And we got a link right there. You're one click away. And we welcome your perspectives on today's discussion. I want to touch on one more thing. I hit last time on consumer spending. It's close neighbor, retail sales. So y'all check this out. So data released by the CNBC NRF Retail Monitor shows that nationally, retail sales dropped a bit in September. A lot of data shows that back-to-school spending was either flat or even decreased this year. However, as you can see here, overall year-over-year retail spending has remained solid throughout 3Q 2025. And looking ahead, some analysts say retail spending may well weaken through the rest of 2025, and that malaise may linger moving into 2026. Amongst many things, some of the spending headwinds include inflation and price pressures. I think that's one of the big themes this here today, and slower job and income growth. Okay, we are going to bring it home, at least for some of us. I hail in the metro Atlanta area. So let's talk about the Southeast region, my favorite. Bobby, your key takeaways of what you're seeing there.
Well, in the Southeast, shipments were down 2.1%. Spend was up 1.6%. And the things that were impacting the Southeast region are a soft labor market, reduced household spending, weaker manufacturing, and something that's been of note for the longest is decreased tourism. Yeah. Another sideline impact of the tariffs, perhaps.
Yes.
Bobby, that's right. I was looking at Metro Atlanta tourist data, and international tourism in particular is down, despite being home of the world's busiest airport. And of course, I was in Vegas earlier this quarter, and of course, Vegas has been hit as well. Hotel occupancies are really down. Heather, when it comes to the Southeast region, what are you seeing?
Southeast still sluggish. We saw in the report minimum volume gains, but in those year-over-year numbers remain weak. So I would say if you're shipping out of this region, could be some opportunity for cost savings, but obviously as a shipper, you have to balance that with making sure you've got reliable and strong carrier partnerships.
That is right. Relationships matter, always have, always will, especially for folks that invest in them rather than treat them very transactionally. Good stuff, Heather. Kim, in the Southeast, which I'm looking hard on that map. And you know what? West Virginia is Northeast. Hey, Kim, what are you seeing in the Southeast?
So I live in Virginia, so close in the Southeast. We're all Southeasters today. And so, again, we're seeing a decline, a softening of the market. You know, we are greatly the Southeast has a lot of impact with politics. So all the uncertainty around layoffs and the firings and all of this stuff has been happening with our government employees. The Southeast has a very large percentage of government employees. So I think that is contributing to what we're seeing here.
Yep. Good stuff, Kim. Well, great analysis.
Yeah.
All good stuff. Okay. And I want to double down on, Bobby touched on the labor market. It's come up a lot of times in really all the regions. Bobby referenced it in the Southeast. And I want to bring in this data here. This is the Conference Board Employment Trends Index. It's a terrific regular measurement of payroll employment in the U.S. So get this. I am not an economist. I'm a quote one. Okay. The economy was not my forte in college, but Mitchell Barnes is an economist at the Conference Board, and he spoke on the August 2025 index saying, quote, the ETI, which is this index, slid further in August, reaching its lowest level since early 2021. The ETI peaked 2 or 3 years ago and has been falling ever since, where the decline likely captured normalization of the distorted post-pandemic labor market, not necessarily weakness. However, the degree of weakness among August's components is disconcerting. And Mitchell continued, layoffs and unemployment remain low as companies navigate through continued uncertainty, but tariff pressures are expected to intensify, raising inflation and reducing consumption, which could restrain activity and dampen future hiring, end quote. So the labor market, I tell you, it's interesting to dive in and slice it up from a variety of perspectives. All right, so we've tackled now 9 key takeaways thanks to Bobby Holland and the team over at U.S. Bank and, of course, the Freight Payment Index. And we're also going through 5 regions and gotten Bobby, Heather's, and Kim's perspectives there. Heather, here's an interesting question for you. So we have created a new position, a new universal position of authority. If you were the world president of global supply chain for a day, what would you like to see? And feel free to offer any prognostications, either one. Your thoughts, Heather?
I think this is a great idea for a new role. Not for me personally, for someone else, because this is a big, stressful job. But I try to break it down. I put thought into this question on more balance, like we were talking about, less uncertainty. And so for that piece, just we've got a lot of disruption going on in geopolitical stability and trade routes, the tariff environment's shaking things up. So companies like myself and other shippers are really having to rethink our sourcing, shifting our trade lanes, find creative ways to mitigate our costs. And so it'd be good if we could get back to more stability and, keeping trade policies in place, but having more stable environment. I also thought, like, big picture, I think that consumers and business leaders now appreciate the value of supply chain more than ever. All the past few years, what we've gone through has really shown that. And, the supply chain is really what keeps the economy running and communities running, for that matter. And then big picture also, I was thinking, supply chain is such an important field, and just want to see continuing inspiring the next generation to help young people see. We talked earlier about how data driven this field is, and the tech piece, and where we're going with AI and analytics, and just how it's just an exciting time to be part of this industry and to just keep that piece of it going.
Very, very well said. And just to clarify, so if we extend the offer to you to become world president of global supply chain, you turn it down, right?
I've got some recommendations for others.
Yeah,
I have 4 kids. I
that
got
role
my
would
own.
not ever pay enough. That role would never pay
Yeah.
enough, no matter what it is, add a 0 or 2. Kim, a kind of a different question for you, and feel free to also weigh in as world president of global supply chain for a day. But what do you see maybe taking place in the freight market in the months ahead?
I talk a lot about ocean freight too. And so, and they're tightly linked, as we know, as we saw West Coast and Northeast. I think we're going to continue to see a softening in the market, unfortunately. And I think we're going to start to see it in the Northeast and the West where it's been somewhat insulated. As Heather touched on, most retailers have stocked their shelves or stocked their warehouses by now. A lot of people pre-bought and panic bought while the tariffs were, going around and around on a daily basis. And so I don't see us seeing a big uptick in Q4 in any freight. And I think it's going to continue to soften. And I think into Q1, it's going to continue to soften.
Kim, I tend to agree with you. And Heather, if I can put you on the spot when you think of that prognostication, and if you'd rather not, that's perfectly fine. Would you tend to agree with what Kim is seeing in the months ahead?
Yes, I agree. I think she summed it up very well.
In big news,
I wish it wasn't true. I'm not excited about that project. I wish this was not the case, but it's where we are.
As my dear friend Corinne Bursa, who's joined us last time, Bobby, if you remember Corinne Bursa joined us, I love her saying, "Facts, not feelings." And Kim goes to exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. We've got to deal in facts as in supply chain. That's how stuff gets done. None of us like some of those facts from time to time, but it's where we are, right? We got to be brokers of reality. Okay. So, Bobby, I want to make sure folks know how to find the U.S. Bank Freight Payment Index, how to subscribe to it, you name it. Bobby, what would be your advice there?
Again, freight.usbank.com, and you fill in a little bit of information, tells us who you are, and it'll be delivered to your inbox, your email inbox every quarter.
Yep. And it is just that easy, folks. You're one click away. Amanda and the gang is dropping a link right there in the chat. And again, Kim, I want to ask you something really quick. Actually, you and Heather, really quick. We got a few extra minutes. When we go back to some of these central visuals I've got, The addition, here's a region by the high level, region by region. You'll see a full breakdown of each region in analysis in the freight payment index. But this new addition of freight rate insights from the team at DAT. Kim, I think this is like golden. I mean, it makes so much sense to bake this into the quarterly report, huh?
I love this, that you guys include this. Every single trucker out there is upset about this, because it's the age-old question, like, how much should I be paying? Because you don't know unless you have unless you're using one of the many amazing apps and software out there who collect freight rates. Other than that, you're just making dozens of phone calls.
Yeah.
And you don't know, like, is it right? Is it wrong? I have no idea. So this is great that we're giving a snapshot. I do find it interesting that it's fairly stable.
Interesting. And Heather, not to put you on the spot, but there's a lot of value in that new addition to the freight payment index.
Yeah, I would say as a shipper, we at Fortive, for example, always challenge ourselves to say, are we buying best, right? Are we getting the best service, the best cost? And so something like that gives us at least a little visibility into the market to compare our rates, how we're paying versus what the market. I think, seeing it then taking another level down regionally, to give you those dynamics, because we know that there's capacity and all kind of changes when you start looking at it regionally. But agree, super helpful.
Yeah, no doubt. So Bobby, we'll see what you got up your sleeve with the next freight payment index. But kudos to you and the team for the great work you do and the conversations that you help to create. Right. All right. So Heather, let's do this. We're about to get Kim Reuter's patented key takeaway. She may have the toughest question of the whole day. But Heather, I want to circle back to the great work that you and the Fortive team are doing. I really admire your mission and I admire your approach here today, as well as I got to find out about those logistics workshops that you were putting on around the globe. So we'll circle back to that. But how can our audience connect with you and the Fortive team?
Yep. So I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I kind of realized a couple of years ago, I have a really cool job and I get to travel. I get to meet with our stakeholders. And so you'll see me posting on LinkedIn about the great work that we're doing. And I was just, again, try to tie it back to the value that we're getting by being together and a lot of the projects that we're working on. So yeah, LinkedIn's probably the best way to get me, and then we can go from there.
Outstanding. Well, thanks again for carving time out to be here with us and appreciate what you do. Folks, go find and follow or connect with Heather Shilt with Fortive, especially on LinkedIn. All right, Kim, talking about folks that are dropping outstanding perspective and challenging leadership on LinkedIn. Y'all got to follow and connect with Kim Reuter too. But the patented key takeaway, Kim, that's a tough question. What's one thing that folks got to take from today's conversation?
So this is a hard one. Normally it's really easy because we're not focused on all of this data and it's easier for me to come up with something. But I think the thing that really struck out for me today and going through the report and digesting all that information is how much housing starts is really playing a part of this impact. I don't know when the last time we saw housing having such an impact on manufacturing and freight. And I know that it does, but I'm just saying the percentage and the heft of that impact seems to me to start to really outweigh some of the other things that are going on.
Yep. Well said. And Kim, I'm gonna throw this chart back up there. I'm not confused by to be a mathematician, but if I had to put a trend line on say from 2021, it kind of illustrates the point you're making, right? And this is just starts. We touched on the lowering data in terms of the new permits. It's something, folks, we got to keep on our radar. And as Heather mentioned, the watch list. I think the watch out list maybe is what Heather mentioned. We got to have a big watch out list before we make global supply chain happen. Okay. Bobby Holland, Director Freight Business Analytics at U.S. Bank. Bobby, You hit another home run, you and the team. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your 9 key takeaways from the Q3 Freight Payment Index.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thank you for your help.
Well, I look forward to hearing more about your global travels next quarter, making me jealous. All right. So Heather Shilt, speaking of global travels, man, what a great year. Heather Shilt, Director, Global Logistics with Fortive, leading an incredible mission there. Heather, thanks so much for being here, and hope you have a great time at your collegiate reunion this weekend.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and thank you for having me, and also thank you for US Bank for putting out this content for carriers, shippers, and the likes to get a good indication on what's taking place in the market.
That is right. We got to have more resources. Again, facts, not feelings. Tip of the hat to Corinne. And Kim Reuter, always a pleasure. You bring it like few do. Always keeping it real. And thanks so much for spending some time with us here today.
Thank you. Love being here.
I do too. All right. So folks, we're dropping links. I want to, again, encourage you. There's a simple link there. You go click on, you're one click away from downloading the whole enchilada. And we would welcome your takes. You know, we had some good stuff from Bobby and Heather and Kim. You may agree with them. You may disagree with them. You may agree with me. You may disagree with me. We'd love to hear from you. Give us your observations. What are you seeing out in the market? We would welcome that. And we'll try to roll up some of those findings and drop them in the next newsletter. But for now, you know the challenge that we like to wrap our shows with. I'll tell you, Bobby and Heather and Kim brought it. There's so much actionable perspective here. Take one thing. Just one thing you heard here from Heather, Bobby, and Kim here today. Share it with the team. Let's turn these opportunities into insights into actions, right? And better outcomes. And you know, we do that via deeds, not words. That's how it all works. So with all that said, Scott here, challenging you on behalf of the whole Supply Chain Now team. Do good, give forward, be the change that's needed. And we'll see you next time right back here on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.